Crimea is a peninsula in Eastern Europe surrounded by Black Sea. In the south, between the Crimean mountains and the sea, runs a narrow coastal strip which became so-called Crimean Riviera, famous with its mild Mediterranean climate. Yalta is located on the deep bay facing towards the Black Sea, surrounded by the mountain range Ai-Petri and by numerous vineyards and orchards. The southern coast, sheltered by mountains, has many exotic plants, as cypress, oleander, almond and myrtle, together with palms and other subtropical flora. Yalta is one of the most popular holiday and health resorts, with many hotels and sanatoriums, including the one established in 1900 at the instigation of the Russian writer Anton Chekhov, who lived in Yalta and created his novels, including the famous one, The Lady with the Dog. The Swallow Nest is a decorative castle in neo-Gothic style, which was built in 1912 on the top of 40-meter-high Aurora Cliff for the Baltic German businessman Baron von Stengel. The first building on the cliff was constructed for a Russian general in 1895. The structure was a wooden cottage romantically named the Castle of Love. In 1911, Baron von Stengel bought the timber cottage and within a year replaced it with the current building. The castle is compact in size, measuring 20 meters long by 10 meters wide, and has only 2 bedrooms on 2 different levels. Bakhchisaray is quite a remote mountain area in the northern part of Crimea, located 120 kilometers from Yalta, and it took part in an important role at medieval history of peninsula. Since 8th century BC, Crimea has been colonized by the Greeks, the Persians, the Romans, the Byzantine Empire, the Crimean Goths, the Genoese, the Ottoman Empire, and the Russian Empire. For over 2 centuries, Russia and the Ottoman Empire were engaged in the series of wars for control of the Black Sea region. In one of those conflicts in 1783, Crimea was absorbed by Russia with recognition the rights of all Khanate noble families by the Russian nobility. Medieval cave town of Yusupov is located 3 kilometers from Bakhchisaray, on a mountain plateau with precipice 1.5 kilometers above sea level. The town was created as a fortified settlement in the 5th or 6th century on the periphery of the Byzantine Empire. In the 15th century, the first Crimean Khan, realizing the fortress advantages, turned the old section of the town into his fortified residence. After the defeat of the Golden Horde, the Crimean Khanate became considerably stronger. After the Crimea's conquest and its inclusion into the Russian Empire, the fortress inhabitants were permitted to live anywhere in the Crimea. From that time on, Yusupov was deserted. However, you still can find around 200 caves that were used by locals for household and defensive needs. By the end of 5 kilometers trek, passing by the ruins of the old cemetery. And finally, it's a lunchtime at a beautiful local restaurant overviewing gorgeous mountains. As I mentioned before, the history of Bakhchisaray, whose name in Crimean Tatar means a garden palace, began in the 16th century, when Tatar Khan Sahib started building his residence here. The palace complex design and minarets were constructed by Ottoman, Persian and Italian architects. The walled enclosure contains a mosque, a harem, a cemetery, living quarters and gardens. The palace interior has been decorated to reflect the traditional 16th century Crimea Tatar style. It's one of the best-known Muslim palaces found in Europe. Bakhchisaray Fontaine, or Fontaine of Tears, is a real case of life-imitating art. The fontaine was built in honor of the Khan's favorite wife Maria, who was killed by the jealous former wife Zarima, and became a touching expression of mourn and a symbol of eternal love. This sad story inspired the famous Russian writer Alexander Pushkin, and he wrote a long narrative poem titled The Fountain of Bakhchisaray. Massandra Palace is one of the most interesting monuments of 19th century architecture, located in Massandra, one of the most beautiful places on Crimea's southern coast. The palace was built in the style of French chateau of the Renaissance and surrounded by park, which is declared as a monument of landscape architecture. In 1899, the unfinished palace was bought by the treasury for Emperor Alexander III, who died before seeing the finished project. In his father's memory, Nicholas II completed the construction of the palace. The Romanovs never lived or even spent the night in the palace. It was used for short stops during hunting trips. The elements of different styles, Renaissance, Baroque, Rococo, Neoclassical style, were used in the interior decoration. Nikita Botanical Garden is one of the oldest botanical gardens in Europe. It was founded in 1812 and named after the settlement Nikita in Crimea. The total area is 11 square kilometers. It is a scientific research center and producer of saplings and seeds, and a tourist attraction. Its collection counts over 50,000 species, sorts and hybrids. Its scientific work consists in study of natural flora, collection of gene funds, and selection of new agricultural plants. Livadia is a settlement in southern Crimea and is known for its healing climate and became a popular resort town. In 1861, Tsar Alexander II bought the land in Livadia and had the grand palace built there as a gift to his wife. Not long after that, the minor palace was built for Alexander III, the next heir to the throne, who visited there many times and eventually died there. The new Italian Renaissance-style building of the palace was designed as a summer residence for the last Russian Tsar Nicholas II in 1911. But he and his family spent just 4 seasons here before their arrest by Bolshevik troops in 1917 and execution the following year. The palace was the site of one of the most important political events on the Second World War, the Yalta Conference. This summit was attended by the 3 heads of state from the anti-Hitler Allied forces, by Roosevelt, Churchill and Stalin. Vorontsov Palace is one of the oldest and the largest palaces in Crimea, and it was built for Russian Prince Mikhail Vorontsov. Although construction was begun in 1828, it took 20 years to build out of green dolerite, the volcanic origin stone, in a mixture of Scottish, English, Gothic and Moorish revival. It was designed by Edward Bloor, well known there for completing the design of Buckingham Palace in London. Mikhail Vorontsov was a Russian prince and field marshal, renowned for his success in the Napoleonic Wars and Caucasian War. He was a great general who insisted on fair treatment for his soldiers and even sold out one of his property to pay his soldiers' debts when troops were leaving Paris after Napoleon War. The palace consists of a total of 150 rooms, but only 8 are open to visitors. The design of the palace was to highlight the Crimea's position as a place where the East and the West meet. Vorontsov's design was to incorporate motifs from Islamic and Tatar architecture into design of the palace. It can be seen at the northern entrance facade, which has the form of an open mosque-like vestibule. The grounds were enhanced by the addition of 3 pairs of white marble lions, made by Italian sculptor Giovanni Bonanni. The palace sits surrounded by gardens and a park. These grounds, consisting of 40 hectares, walled out in the form of amphitheatre, featuring wide open spaces and gardens planted alongside the walkways. Fauna was introduced from various locations throughout the world, including the Mediterranean, the Americas and East Asia. Flora imported over 150 years ago still numbers almost 200 species. Crimea's coastal highway runs through the park, dividing it into the upper and lower portions. The upper park is dominated by the mountain springs, and southern coast by forestry and clusters of foreign tree growth. Ai-Petri is a mountain peak, and the legendary massif of 300 square kilometers spreads for 25 kilometers from east to west. The name has Greek origin and translates as Saint Peter. There are two ways to get to its 1,200-meter high peaks to see the unforgettable views, which is to take the minibus or use the cableway. We decided to explore both ways. Minibus makes few stops on the way to see enchanted lake looks like a fairy tale, gorgeous, and an amazing view over the whole southeastern coast of Crimea. Ai-Petri is one of the windiest places in Crimea. The wind blows for 125 days a year, reaching a speed of 50 meters per second. At the top of Ai-Petri, we reached a bare stone plateau with many cafes and places where good to stop for lunch to try national Tatar cuisine and treat yourself to Eastern sweets. You can get the delicious soup, freshly grilled trout, honey walnut cake and herbal tea for less than $10. Short ride by minibus for about 10 minutes and hiking for another 1.5 kilometers by steep rocky slope to reach the main point, Ai-Petri Peaks. In addition to troublesome winds, the high peak is also one of the foggiest places in peninsula, given the heights and air of mystery and danger. The cable bridges were built in the recent years and allows for safe passage to cross over the long ago erected rock formations. Ai-Petri has everything for adventurous getaway. You can do zip lining, ride horses, mountain bicycles, enduro motorcycles, quad bikes, and even paragliding there. We rented a quad bike for about $80 to explore the amazing sceneries around. Last view of the gorgeous Ai-Petri peaks and fast track down to the coast with a cable car. The cost for both minibus and cableway is similar for about $7 each. Yusupov Palace was built for the Prince Felix Yusupov in 1909. He was a Russian aristocrat, prince and count from the Yusupov dynasty, one of the most distinguished, influential and rich families in Russia. He is best known for participating in the assassination of Grigory Rasputin and marrying the niece of Tsar Nicholas II. In 1945, during the Yalta Conference, Joseph Stalin made the palace by his residence. To commemorate this event, 3 palm trees were planted by participants of this conference, by Roosevelt, Churchill and Stalin. The palace eclectic architecture features some fine examples of Renaissance and Roman Revival style, while the interior is designed in the Art Nouveau style. Not so much left in the interior of the palace from the previous decoration. It was reconstructed for Stalin's needs during his stay in the palace. The park covers an area of 17 hectares and 7,500 species of plants, trees from 100 to 500 years old, as well as 200 species of shrubs. There are countless fountains and small pools all over the park, with statues of goddesses, mermaids and nymphs. The park area, its entrances and niches are protected by marble and terracotta lions, which are the hallmark of the Yusupov Palace, and they were brought from Venice. If you like this video, please feel free to subscribe to get notified of my future trips.